Welcome to the Nightly Rant
with
your hosts, Mike
and Torya.
This is the show where we examine society from a sarcastic point of view.
If you like insane conversations, this is definitely the show for you.
Let's get into today's topic. YPN people, I don't know about you, but I love helping out a friend. That's why I want to shout out my friend Brian Little and his podcast, Your Favorite Blockhead. This is the only show that manages to weave together peanuts and MMA into one heck of an amazing podcast. You can find Your Favorite Blockhead wherever your favorite podcasts reside and at yourfavoriteblockhead.com. Do me a huge favor and listen to Brian's show. You'll be entertained and you'll help out a friend. Now, as I said, let's get into today's topic. So, I discovered kind of odd situation around here.
Did you know?
The area is kind of high tech. In fact, just down the road, we have tech spaces for rent, specifically for tech companies.
Like the Bandai building?
Well, and then
it's not really specifically tech.
Further like towards the Irvine area, when you head down that way, there's tech rentals on the side. But you look up co-working spaces in every state except for here. In fact, in every city except for around here. And you find dozens of options for everything from super cheap to super expensive.
There are absolutely none in Cypress or Buena Park. Zero.
None.
Absolutely zero.
It's insane.
Like, what the hell is this? Don't people in Cypress and Buena Park want to work in a co-working space?
Well, like they say, it's the perfect thing for startup companies as they're growing.
Right.
You know, it's a
lot less
stepping
overhead.
It up to a different level.
A lot less overhead.
Yeah, but you're stepping it up to a different level. You're leaving from home.
Taking yourself out of your garage.
Yeah.
I feel like at that point you feel like your company's actually going to start moving forward.
So I don't understand why there's such a lack, because there's definitely a need for it.
Yeah. So maybe someone should tell that to the owners of the Bandai building, and they should turn that cool-ass building into one big, giant co-working space.
Yeah, I would agree.
But they need to put the Power Rangers back in the lobby first.
It's frustrating, though, because, like I said, there's a need, and you'd think that someone would fill that need, but
They
don't seem to care.
I didn't even, like, I tried your suggestion of looking up executive suites, and I got a whole bunch of, like, weird nightclubs, and
I got mostly the same places we already see.
I didn't Google, I Yelped.
I Googled.
So we'll stick that out there first. But I got weird nightclubs in Fullerton, and then I got like the Hilton executive meeting room. Blah 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 blah.
Interesting.
And I was like, none of these things are what
I Googled it, and I got pretty much the same places I'd already seen by looking up co-working. Because apparently they all have some form of co-working offering that they provide. And basically, what a lot of the executive suite places are doing is they just have an area of their lobby that's cordoned off for like public use. So you pay them a membership fee, and then that's where you get to use it.
Well, the thing that I've learned that's very interesting is that a lot of these places have a public rate to use their meeting rooms. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Wish I would have known that when we booked that room for the day.
Yeah, me too.
Would have been more comfortable.
Because a lot of these spaces are like $30 for the day.
Yeah, would have been more comfortable.
And less pornographic.
But you know, we talked in a previous episode about meeting some nice people at the Libertarian State Convention.
Vermin Supreme. Whoop whoop.
We talked about how nice they were, but realistically, it's not the whole story. So why don't you tell them the rest of the story?
This convention had two very distinctive sides. There were super nice people, and there was really big entitled jackholes. So we figured we'd split them into two separate conversations, because we just really wanted to emphasize how big and titled these jackholes were. Now, the person that I'm referring to specifically, it's Sunday morning. The elections and all the bullshit that goes before the elections was supposed to start at 9 a.m. We get there at like 8:30 because somebody told you needed to make sure you were there on time so that you could get credentialed so that you could actually vote in the elections. Okay. So then we're there. I'm bored out of my mind. I played more Candy Crush than I've ever played in my life. And I'll all of a sudden I like go back to the main menu screen of my phone and I see that it's 9:40. I'm like, why hasn't this shit started yet? Like, let's go here. It's 40 minutes late. Then, less than 5 minutes later, the chairperson, she gets up and she's saying, we're going to close the credentialing. We're going to start these elections. We're already 40 minutes late. All good. I agree. Get this shit started. Let's do it. Then this dude, he stands up. He had just arrived. And he was pissed that he wasn't going to be able to vote because he wasn't going to be able to get his credentials because how dare they stomp on his ability to vote in these elections.
Which, by the way, registration opened at 7 a.m. Just saying.
And all I could think to myself was, why the fuck should I have to wait longer because you couldn't haul your lazy ass down here?
Well, what's funny was he kept saying that he was a libertarian and they didn't have a right to step on his rights and how dare they. But what popped into my mind immediately is, we've talked about what personal freedom is about. We've discussed how you can do whatever you want when it's in the privacy of your own home. But as soon as you start affecting and interacting with other people, you have to be moderate in how you handle things.
Have some common courtesy.
And have some courtesy. So at what point didn't he affect us that we had an 8-hour drive to come back from there to here? And the earlier we could leave, the better. And we were hoping to leave by like noon.
That's where the word entitled
came. And this jerk is acting like it's his right to be 40 minutes late. And you know what? It is his right to be 40 minutes late. But it's our right to close things down at a given time. And let's face it, registration, i.e. credentialing, was from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. It was advertised for months ahead of time. That registration was from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. I must have gotten 753,228 emails telling me that registration was from 7 to 9, and that if I didn't register, I wouldn't be able to vote. Yes, almost 800,000 emails telling me this. So I'm sure I'm not the only one who got 800,000 emails.
No, because I'd say the vast majority of people were there on time. There was probably like 30 or so that were filing in late, but they were filing in at an uneven rate. And I'm sorry, but the people, specifically that one dude doing the registration, was incompetent.
I think that some people, though, came early, got credentialed, and then bailed because they knew it was going to start late.
Probably.
And, remember, most of those people stayed in the hotel.
And I have nothing but respect for that. That's fine.
So if
just
you stayed
get
in
it
the
taken care of.
But my thing is, if you stayed in the hotel, it'd be easy to come down at like 8 o'clock, get your credentials, go back up to your room and chill out watching TV or reading or doing whatever.
Yeah.
And then knowing full well it's not going to start at 10 o'clock because that's just what always happens. So then you come back downstairs at 10 o'clock. But how dare you evoke the whole not very libertarian of you to take away my right to vote? Well, it's not very libertarian of you to make me fucking wait for 45 extra minutes beyond a time that was advertised. Almost 800,000 emails advertised this.
So because of
yes, I know I'm exaggerating, but the point
Barely.
is there were so many that there was like multiple in a day. I'm not kidding you about that. Multiple in a day. Whoever set up that campaign is a lunatic, like flat out lunatic, because people who sell big, Tony Robbins doesn't send me 3 emails a day and I'm on his mailing list for his new product
I
launch.
told you this when the elections were going on, like the actual for the government election.
Yeah, some
They were
loonbag
sending
thinks
me
it's okay.
so many emails. I did not need 6 emails a day about Larry Sharp. I'm sure he's a very nice person. He seemed like a very nice person when we saw him. But I don't
He
give a
is a
shit
nice
about
person.
him
I chatted
to
with him.
see 6 emails a day about him.
He is a nice person. I chatted with him for a couple of minutes.
Cool.
Super nice dude. But that's not the point.
6 emails a day.
Nobody needs to send us 5 and 6 emails a day about the same, and essentially about the same topic, almost the same email.
Right.
Like, why am I getting this? That almost feels like they've gotten our email address in multiple places, quite honestly, and they have us getting multiple emails because the system they use doesn't merge them together. Because that's what will happen, like with our system. If you have a group of X and a group of Y, and I'm already in the group of Y, and I see your opt-in, and I go in there, and now I'm in the group of X, but I'm still in the group of Y. It doesn't create a second record for me. It only gives me one record. But their system clearly, just because you get the same exact email at around the same time, and it's like, how did I get 3 copies of this?
But I would get 6 at different times of the day.
Yeah, it's just stupid. So
like,
whoever did that, and if you're listening to this, wake up and stop doing that. It's ridiculous. It takes way too much time for everybody involved.
I complain about people who send me 1 email a day. 1.
But bottom line, that dude had no place to complain. None. 0.
He needed to zip his lip. He was being rude. And I just wanted to throat punch him. Like, of all of the people that weekend that I wanted to throat punch, he was number 1.
Yeah. But then there was the guy that kept getting up and,
God.
I'm going to put air quotes around it, asking questions.
He was preaching.
And yeah, exactly. He knew the answers that he was looking for. He'd get up there and be like, so could you tell me how much percentage of increase have we had in membership? And if it was one that she didn't know, this is how you knew he knew the answers ahead of time. She'd most of the time answer them. But then there are times when they'd say, I don't have that right here in my report. I'll be glad to look it up and send it to you later, though. Oh, no, you don't have to. I have the numbers right here.
Right.
That's what he would say.
And then they'd answer and say they'd made $5,623 from an event. And they said they raised $5,600 from the event because nobody gives a shit about the $23. He'd be like, well, that's not what I'm showing here. I'm showing $5,623. Is that correct?
Yeah. And he was trying to make them look incompetent because he wanted their job.
Guys.
And I think it cost him.
And then there was the dude who you talked to online, the heckler. And he cornered us outside, and he was like, yo, I'm going to make this bylaw change thing bullshit that I stopped listening to when he started talking because I truly don't care. And he was just special all weekend.
Yeah.
Special. Like, he was super rude. But he's the type of dude who's like 10,000% rude, but to people who are dumb, he sounds super polite.
Uh-huh. Yeah. You're right. He has an agenda. A big one.
Mm-hmm.
Big agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And he's playing it. So,
or trying to.
But
clearly
he's playing
failing
it.
though.
But he's putting it out there. And that's, good for him. More power to him. I'm glad he's putting it out there. It's his prerogative.
No, he's just a dick.
But that's how he comes off.
Yeah.
But he has a lot of people who support him and love him.
Well, you heard what I just said about those people.
Well, yeah, but you got me. I mean, like, I don't know. I don't know. And, I mean, on the surface, there were 3 people running for chair. And on the surface, it appeared that any one of the 3 could do the job.
Right.
But I had heard some, crappy rumors about one of the 3. And I'm not one to just go based off of rumors. I don't like doing that because I feel it's exactly like when I say, oh, the neighbor from across the hall comes and talks to this neighbor on this side of the hall about who they're voting for president. So that person decides that's who they're going to vote for because that person is smart.
But his
and they look up for it. Or even better yet, I've heard men say, no BS, at the gym, early morning, same group of men, and a dude says, you know, I was going to vote for Hillary, but then my across the hall neighbor with the great ass told me she was voting for Trump. So I had to vote for Trump so that later, when she asks me, I can be honest and say I voted for him. It's like they think that voting the way she voted means they're going to bang her someday.
Anyway, dude, his performance.
And I'm against this whole voting for something because of. So anyway.
Dude, his performance with the question asking and bull crap just confirmed every single rumor you'd heard about him.
Exactly. And that was my point. That's where I was headed with it. So thanks for spitting it up.
God.
Like, I wasn't going to make a judgment based off the rumor. But then you watch it in action and you're like, they weren't wrong. They weren't wrong at all.
Our first introduction to this dude was when we were sitting there waiting for the thing. And he's going on and on and on about his life. And I turned to you and I asked you, who is that dude? He never shuts up and he's really annoying. And then the next day, you ask our friend David. He tells you who that. Well, no, we figured it out before that, but we were going to ask David.
Yeah.
Yeah. We figured it out. He was the dude we'd heard all the rumors about. Special.
Yeah, it's crazy. But so then that means that there's only two. And I'm going to say that those two handled themselves very professionally. They didn't badmouth each other.
And I think that, honestly, with one of them being reelected as chair and the other one being elected as at-large, had either one of them won the chair, the other would have been elected at-large.
Yeah, so nothing changes, really.
No, because they seem to not give a shit about position when they're handling business internally, and just they're a group of people who make these decisions. So,
correct. So I don't know. But was there anyone else that you can think of that was like super duper rude?
There was the people, I hate to say this, but the group of old white men in the back that were heckling everything that was said by one of the members of the board.
Yeah.
And then there was that dude who was on the board and is no longer.
Oh, the one that didn't like our friend.
Yeah. And, okay, so at the beginning of the Saturday
really
day,
doesn't like our friend. Holy moly.
At the beginning of the Saturday day, all of the executive committee stood up and like gave their reports on various things. And he was the last one to go. And he stood up and like he started talking and kept waiting for it to actually be a report instead of I'm just going to bash.
It was a bash session.
He stood up there for like 15 minutes and just completely bashed one person. And that's super libertarian, right? Seemed kind of aggressive to me.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, that was the dude that wanted to shut off the live feed at the previous meeting. I mean,
slimy son of a bitch. That's what
he's special. But, you know, one thing you learn when you go to things like this is that if they're vocal like that, and clearly they're on the board, so they got enough support to get on the board, they have followers. They have people who believe them.
I think in that guy's case, he didn't used to be such a jackass.
Oh, I agree with you.
And that nobody else wanted the position for so long that he just kind of stayed until he didn't want it anymore.
I agree with you.
Kind of like the treasurer guy.
Yeah.
You notice nobody runs against him.
Yeah.
You know, he's kind of a lunatic.
No, I agree with you.
Nobody wants to be the treasurer.
No, it's not a fun job. I once, did I ever tell you about that? If I have, maybe the people would like to know about when I was asked to be the treasurer of the PTA.
Oh, yeah, you kind of did.
And so, you know, I come to this new PTA, and it was when Mitch and Alyssa moved to a new school. And so I come to this new PTA, and PTA president is super nice lady, like just the kind of person, you know, you would do anything for her. Super nice lady. And Her husband, super nice. All of her kids, super nice. Just a nice person. And probably a week into us being at this new school, she asked me if I'd ever thought about taking a position on the PTA board. And I said, I've held positions on the PTA board many times.
You didn't run away screaming.
And she goes, well, we need a treasurer. Would you mind being the treasurer? And she said, we're going to have a financial secretary who'll handle all of the deposits and everything. So all you have to do is verify things. That's it, and keep the books. I was like, if I do this, the first thing you're approving is QuickBooks Online. Because this is ridiculous that you have to pass a book around from person to person in order to verify your records.
Because Wave didn't exist then.
Yeah. So they agreed, and I agreed, and I did it, and I hated it. It was the worst job because you had to be involved in everything. They did a fundraiser. Someone brought in money. I was always getting messages from the office that there was money in the PTA box, and I had to take the money into the bank. And I'm like, where's the financial secretary? They never were able to find one. No one was stupid enough to volunteer. So then at the end, I told her I didn't want to do it again. She said, okay, I'll find somebody to do it. And she came to me at the last minute and she said, will you please take the job again? And like I said, she's so nice. And I knew you could only hold it for 2 terms. There's term limits. I was like, okay, this is my last time. I don't have to do it after this. So I did it. And the only reason I did it was because she was so nice.
Right.
But then the second time around, it was like a bleeping nightmare. Like, there were new people that had joined the PTA, and so they didn't know any of the procedures. Like, you'd get this big wad of cash, and it wouldn't have, like, there's a sheet that you're supposed to break down, like, how many ones, how many fives, how many tens, how many 20s, how many 50s, how many hundreds. And then on the back, categories with an amount. So what was this expenditure for? Because they did a really, like, professional, like, you budget for the carnival. You don't just get, X thousands of dollars for the carnival. You get so much money for rides, so much money for games, so much money for concessions, etc. Right. I mean, they broke it down by percentage. This is so much money you get, and then you get X percent, X percent, X, blah, 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 blah.
Right, to watch my friends.
Right. That way, exactly. So that in the future, they'd know, well, not only do we need to up the budget by $1,000, but all of that money needs to go here because we keep falling short on this part right here.
Right.
So they were very good about it. But my God, you'd get these things and there wouldn't be any of that information. And then you'd have to call the person. And meanwhile, you're trucking around like $3,000 with you because you can't leave it anywhere. And so then you have to go back to the school because it's a Friday, and you got to go back to the school on Monday and tell the secretary, I need to lock this in the safe because, I've had to hold it all effing weekend. And then finally, like 5-6 days later, the person calls you back. Oh, yeah, well, here's the breakdown. You're like, why didn't you give me the breakdown in the first place? That's the kind of year it was for me, like nonstop.
And I know how much
having to follow up on people, and I wanted to strangle these women. So then after that, I started teaching chess there, and problem solved. Because then I was too busy for them to invite me on the PTA board. But that woman is just so nice. But I'll be 100% honest. Like in high school, I feel that my high school aged kids don't want me around their school all the time. I don't think they want their mom around their school all the time.
I think 99% of high school age kids.
Exactly. But I'm only speaking for my high school kids.
Speak from somebody whose mother was around a lot when she was in high school.
And I think that's why I avoid any kind of PTA volunteering, because I don't want to embarrass them. I want them to have things the way they want things to be, and I want them to be comfortable with the way things are. I don't want
it's a lot less work
to make them feel uncomfortable. And yeah, then there isn't as much. And you know what? It really comes down to it, and they insist on like bingo shifts next time, I may just pay them.
Yeah.
Because
it was fun though when we did it together.
It wasn't fun when I had to do it by myself.
We had a good time when we did it together.
Yeah.
So if we need to do more, we'll just make sure we do them together.
But see, what they should let you do is 2 people do a half a shift each at the same time, and that counts for 8 hours.
Yeah.
Rather
Then
than
they end up with 2 people leaving halfway through, and
yeah, but then they could schedule it so that they bring 2 people in when you're about to leave.
Yeah, they don't.
Well, that's the point. It's kind of
Because they're not organized.
disorganized. Yeah.
And it's all volunteer based. We all know how flaky volunteers are.
Yup. But it was, back to that whole, then we can get out of here, but back to that whole convention thing, I was starting to say that, like, the thing that I've learned is that people who are a little more loud, they tend to be a little more loud because they have support. It may be a little bit of support, it may be a lot of support, but they have support.
Dude, all I have to say to that is fake mic fans.
Yes, there are some people who think that being loud means you have support. I'm just saying that I've determined that most people who are more boisterous and loud have some level of support. And it shocks me sometimes. I will like the guy asking the questions, but having the answers. To me, to my way of thinking, right there, I'm sorry, I'm going to be blunt. That person's an idiot. Period. You're an idiot for asking questions like that. How about say, isn't it true that we raised $5,623 for this event? Why bicker over she said $5,600? Right. Who gives a crap? You're an idiot. Period. But with that said, saying that person is an idiot, the point is, why do you need to be such a jackass about it?
And I think that's why he doesn't really have a lot of support.
Well, yeah, you end up losing support because people are like, my God, you're an idiot. Like for me, I couldn't even consider him for that position.
He has no interpersonal skills.
And I'll be honest with you, I could have voted for either of the other two and been comfortable with it.
I know you could have. Anyway, so the moral of the story is that there was nice people and there was jackholes.
Just like anything else.
But it seems like
it's just a microcosm of society.
It seems like when you go to something political, and I'm not gonna clarify which party I'm speaking of because it's all of them. When you go to something political, there's wackos and there's jackholes. And there's nobody in the middle. Like
which was I?
There are very few people that it's comfortable to stand next to because they're not a wacko or a jackhole.
So which was I? You said there's wackos or jackholes, and that was all you gave. So which one was I? A wacko or a jackhole?
Then I said there's
which one was I? You didn't answer me. Which one was I?
I prefer to hang out with the wacko.
Uh-huh.
You can hang out wherever you want. Your choices are Vermin Supreme.
My problem is that because of, and I'm working on it, but because of some things that happened with that whole termination of that situation, I have a hard time opening up to people. So when we talk in person or whatever, someone who's new, it takes a while for me to get comfortable with them. So meeting someone new on a Friday when I'm leaving on a Sunday, not enough time. Not going to get close enough to that person. Versus like the guy that I was supporting and I endorsed, he could talk to a tree and be friendly to it. And normally I can be that way, but I don't, and I am that way, but I don't let them in for a while. He seemed to just let people in, which I suppose I'm looking at it in a way right now like it's a good thing, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's a bad thing.
Well, you don't regularly get accused of being a homeless alcoholic, so maybe...
Never been accused of that.
Too far in.
But I have been accused of committing voter fraud because somebody decided to take something that was said and twist it.
At least you didn't steal any signs.
There you go. That's true. I didn't. I don't steal, period.
Mm-hmm. Anyway.
I even tried to do things when I was running for office. Every single time I did things to insulate myself from the money. I don't want to be anywhere near the money.
Yep.
So, anyway, I think that we had a good time. We met some neat people, but we also observed some real lunatics who some were normal lunatics and some were just jerks, like you said, jackholes. And I think you'd pretty much have a good, I think I would add a third group of people who were kind of entertained by both sides. That's where I would put myself.
Yeah, I guess we fit with it.
Entertained by both sides and kind of sit in the middle and go,
What's going on?
you know, I support their right to do that, but I support their right to do that. So let's just watch this and eat some popcorn and see what happens.
My favorite part is that the people who are visibly a little crazy are just super nice, wonderful people.
Yep.
And the people who look, quote unquote, normal, no, they're just awful.
Yeah.
That was my takeaway of the people who got up to ask questions or comment at the microphone. Anyway, good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Suckers.
You're a sucker. You're a cherry sucker. So there. You're not going to say anything else, are you? I guess I'll interview Yogi for 5 or 10 minutes. Oh, there we go. I got a laugh out of her. Ha ha ha. Stella, bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Nightly Rant.
If you enjoyed the show, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Google Play.
If you didn't enjoy the show, please just ignore that previous request for a rating.
This has been a Yogi's Podcast Network production.